Far Cry 6 is the new game that I am very excited to get my hands on. Unfortunately though, the game has been delayed to an undisclosed release date, and the only thing we have right now to get us hyped is the reveal trailer that was released back in 2020. But with that trailer, there is one thing that every player was speculating, and this is that Diego from Far Cry 6 is actually a young Vaas from Far Cry 3. And I think that this is a very interesting premise, but we do need to go through absolutely everything. Reasons why this could be Vaas and reasons why it can't. And this is exactly what we're going to be doing in this video. Before I do get into the video though, if you do want to see any more content from me, I have got links in the description down below. One thing that I do want to point out is that I have recently put together a new channel. This channel is entirely dedicated to entertainment. So here on this channel, we go through a number of different games, revealing the latest news, the latest updates, and even videos like this where we go through some theories. On that channel, it's all about just having fun. So if you do want to see that, links to that can be found in the description down below. Getting back into the video, the first thing to say is that this video will contain spoilers. We're going to be talking about previous Far Cry games and also some of the key events that happened within them. So if you haven't played those previous games, then I highly recommend clicking off this video. The whole theory revolves around Diego being a young Vaas just because of the scar. This also comes down to Far Cry 6 actually being a prequel to Far Cry 3. Which would definitely be a very interesting game. But let's actually explore this. This all starts out on Reddit. Michael Mando, who is the actor who plays Vaas, did a Reddit Q&A. Someone asked the question whether or not he still gets recognized as Vaas, or do people now notice him for other characters he plays, such as Better Call Saul, where he plays as Nacho. Michael Mando replies with this: "Thank you so much. Vaas is my spirit animal. Having co-created that character is something that will always be dear to me. I still get recognized as Vaas, and I still feel the outpouring of love for that character. Makes me very happy. Who knows, maybe I'll reprise the role very soon. Thank you for watching." And this did get a lot of hardcore Far Cry fans very excited to potentially see Vaas again within the series, especially that he is the most beloved character throughout all of the Far Cry games. So there are many players that have leaped onto this, some arguing that this means Vaas is going to make a return, and some saying that this is just Michael jumping on the bandwagon and making a joke. The big thing to note with this Reddit Q&A is that it happened way before the reveal of Far Cry 6, and before all the speculations from the players about Diego being a young Vaas. And if this was Michael trying to start a joke or just hopping on the bandwagon, Michael would have to be an absolute genius. This meant that he was able to predict Ubisoft Far Cry 6 reveal and also the player speculation that followed, which would be absolutely insane. Following this, once Far Cry 6 reveal trailer was revealed and fans started linking Diego to Vaas because of the scar, it was all over Twitter. Joe Screbbles, executive editor of news for IGN, tweeted out this: "So, is Diego in Far Cry 6 meant to be a young Vaas from Far Cry 3, with a picture of both Vaas and Diego comparing the scars?" Now, as we have already talked about this, it isn't major news, but what is big here is that Michael Mando did interact with this tweet by retweeting it and saying insane with the mind blown emoji, leading for even more players to believe that this is Michael implying Diego is a young Vaas. But here's the thing, this is the only stuff that is pointing to Diego being a young Vaas. After this, there's nothing else. So this is where I turn to be the bad person. This is where I break down all the reasons against why this can't be Vaas. We're going to start off with the early life. When reading up about Vaas Montenegro, I found out that he was born in 1985 on the Rook Islands, which means Diego can't be a young Vaas because quite clearly he is not born within the Rook Islands. And we can look further into this by looking at Diego's father and his experiences. His father is called Anton Castillo. We know Anton's father was El Presidente, and a revolution occurred when he was at a young age. Anton saw his father executed right in front of him. Anton spent the next 50 years watching Yara experience economic decline. Anton saw it as proof that only the Castillo family could save the island. And this is why Anton then went for El Presidente later in his life. But with this, we can clearly see with the history that's been given to us that Anton was born in Yara and has lived there his whole life. Only for Diego to be born in Yara and for him to also live there his whole life, as Anton himself hasn't left. And it's very unlikely, with Diego being the age that he is, that he's out exploring the rest of the world. Now, I have seen this argument thrown around quite a bit already, and this is where other players raise this theory. We could have an ending for Far Cry 6 that results in Diego hating his father and wanting nothing to do with him or his beliefs, leading Diego to move to the Rook Islands, change his name, lie about his age, and lie about where he was born. This resulting in Vaas having his early life documented on fandom pages and it being correct from what has been said, but within the series, the whole thing is a lie. And I guess even though this seems like a lot of speculation and a bit far-fetched, it can possibly happen. So let's move on to the next point. Vaas actually has a sister. Citra Tolugmai is the main villain from Far Cry 3, despite Vaas being the face of everything. Some will also notice that Citra and Vaas have completely different second names. We have Citra Tolugmai and we also have Vaas Montenegro. And it says this on the fandom. Very little is known about Citra's early life, but it is revealed through conversation with Vaas that Citra is believed to be the older sister of Vaas. She and her supposed brother were both likely born from illicit relationships. However, Vaas could have been brought to Citra as a toddler, and at such a young age, he could have easily accepted her as his sister. So this theory that at the end of Far Cry 6, Diego could end up hating his father and then moving away is possible, except that it also says at a young age of being a toddler, that is when Vaas met Citra, and that's when he started to actually see her as his sister. And when looking at the trailers, we can clearly see that Diego is not a toddler, but I guess there still is a little bit of room for you to argue that he still ran away at a young age. But this is where we move on to some concrete evidence and reasons why it just can't possibly happen. And this is by looking at the birth years for Anton Castillo, Vaas, and also the age of Diego. So it says Anton Castillo was born sometime in the 1960s and is somewhere in his 60s, but doesn't give an exact date. For ease, let's just say it's 1960 and he is exactly 60, because this could be the worst case scenario. We then also know that Vaas was born in 1985 and died at the age of 27 years old. And we also know that Diego is 13 years old, but it doesn't actually give an exact birth year. But that's fine, because if we go back to Anton, if he was born in exactly 1960 and he's 60 years old, this means that the game currently is set within 2020. Diego's age is 13, so let's just take that away from 2020 and we get 2007. This is at least his birth year. What I mean by that being at least his birth year is that we did change up some numbers slightly because we don't have the exact dates. But this is the earliest in which he could be born. Now, earlier we hypothesized that at the end of Far Cry 6 we can have an ending where Diego hates his father and wants nothing to do with him, resulting in him moving to the Rook Islands, changing his name and lying about his age. But there's a difference between lying about a couple years and lying about 22-year difference. It would mean Vaas in Far Cry 3 isn't actually 27, but in fact he is 49 years old, and his sister Citra is 2 years older than him, so she is 51 years old. Now, I know Far Cry 3 is a game that was released in 2012, but let's be real here. Ubisoft definitely had the capabilities to add wrinkles to them if they were 49 and 51 years old. But no, they're actually looking pretty young. What also makes me believe in this timeline for Far Cry is that the phones that have been shown within the trailer. Diego is clearly listening to music on a pretty up-to-date phone, whereas in Far Cry 3, we know that Jason Brody's phone is pretty much outdated. Remember that Jason Brody went on holiday with his friends and recorded a lot of the different events. Vaas then uses that phone to play through all the videos they recorded whilst they were on holiday and uses it to intimidate them whilst they're in the cages. If Diego is a young Vaas, then that would mean that Diego is having better technology at a much younger age to the character within Far Cry 3. It would be fair to assume that the Rook Islands are slightly behind the rest of the world in technology, but this wasn't Vaas's phone. This was Jason Brody's phone, and we know that Jason was born in LA, California, in United States. And I would assume, being in America, as well as Jason Brody having the time to afford different luxury holidays and being able to do what he's doing at the age of 25, he will probably have a pretty decent phone for the time. So in this area, things are just not lining up with the ages of the current characters within Far Cry 6 and also the ages of Far Cry 3, and also moving on to the technology that's available. This is also where I do just want to put the final nail in the coffin, the scar itself. Yes, I know the scar is also the reason for Diego being a young Vaas. This is why the whole theory surfaced, but this is also why we need to talk about it. Because if we can poke holes through this being the scar, then this theory really has no legs to stand on. So Diego and Vaas have the exact same scar, but do they actually? Because last time I checked in Far Cry 3, the scar was never actually there in the game. You have the scar on Vaas's left eye which goes around his head, but there's no scar on his right eye, which is what Diego has at a young age. The scar that everyone is actually referencing is from the live action Vaas, and with all the research that I've done, unfortunately I can't tell you why that is. I can't tell you why Far Cry 3 Vaas doesn't have this scar, but live action Vaas has this scar. Maybe Ubisoft intended for this scar to always be there, but it never showed up properly in game. Maybe this was a last minute decision from the producer of the live action show to give Vaas more character. Maybe the makeup artist intended to do the scar on his left eye but got confused with which side, so started on the right eye. Maybe the makeup artist just went completely rogue and decided to do whatever scars they wanted. Maybe this was Mando having an accident just before recording, or even deciding to do it himself. There are so many different reasons of why this could be, and I can't tell you which one it is because nothing has been documented on this. There could be any reasons for this to happen, but because the scar itself is not consistent through Far Cry 3 and the live action, we can't actually say that this is Vaas. So when we look at the key events, the maps, the ages, the current technology available for the Far Cry games, none of this lines up, which leads to my conclusion. I don't believe that Diego Castillo is a young Vaas. Ubisoft would really have to bend some lore, and there's simply no logical explanation why this could happen. The only way that I can see this happening is if the Far Cry universe is now part of a multiverse, or even time traveling exists, which I think would be a very cheap way for them to make things fit. What I do believe is that Mando is doing something for Ubisoft. I can't think of any logical reason why he started hinting towards Vaas making a return just moments before Far Cry 6 reveal. He must have had some sort of knowledge, or Ubisoft must have contacted him about an advertising opportunity. Something must have happened here, or Mando is just an absolute genius that can predict the future. But that is absolutely everything. I've now broken all the reasons down for Diego being a young Vaas, and I've broken down all the reasons against Diego being a young Vaas. Now this is just my opinion. I don't think it is going to be a young Vaas. I just don't think anything lines up properly for this to be a thing, apart from it being the exact same scar, which is only the exact same scar when you look at the live action. But this is where I throw it over to you guys. Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you do want to see any more content from me, as said at the beginning, I have created a completely new channel, whereas this channel is here to educate you, give you the latest news and updates about future games and tutorials once those games are released. That channel is all about entertainment, having fun with the games that are currently out. So if you want to see that, link to that is in the description down below. But anyway guys, I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did enjoy, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. But for now, I'm going to see ya.